And welcome back to the morning drill. We got some guests joining us in the studio this morning. Good morning, guys. How are you?
Good.
A full crew. And we'll have you introduce yourself. We'll start with you, Mr. McAllister.
Okay, my name's Dick McAllister. I'm the chairperson of the Titusville Shade Tree Commission.
I'm Lynn Cressman, and I'm a volunteer with the Shade Tree Commission.
All right. Well, welcome, guys.
Thank
Good to
you.
see you this morning. There's been a lot in the news over the last couple months involving what you guys are working on, and let's talk a little bit about that.
Okay, the news reports are basically dealing with the issue that we bring today, and that's the emerald ash borer. It's a bug that's attacking ash trees. Supposedly, this bug was transmitted on pallets coming from China, coming into the east coast of the United States. And, well, when we got information, it was probably a month or so ago, it had swept through the eastern part of the United States over to the Mississippi River, into the states of Mississippi and Texas, and it's just going to keep on going. It's just going to keep on going. What happens is this bug, the borer, gets into the tree, and you can see the tree change from a normal ashy brown substance looking to almost like orange pigment. It changes the bark into orange. Well, that's the first case. Then you'll see the leaves leaving the tree, falling. And it just literally, it seems after we started to investigate this back in the first part of May, that the leaves just started to drop. And then as we've said in the past, the last gasp of the tree is it starts to send sprouts up out of the ground like it wants to rejuvenate itself, and it can't. And it gets so bad that the Penn State Extension Service, which we use as a backup for what's going on, has talked with our people and said, if you're going to have you have to have professionals take it down. We don't take things down. We just trim them. If you're having professionals take them down, tell them they're not supposed to climb the tree, because the borer sucks all the fluid out of the tree and it becomes a danger. And you have to use a mechanized bucket approach in taking these things down.
So this isn't a question of if they come, they're here.
Oh, yeah, they're here, and
They will spread, if you have an infected tree, 10 to 15 miles is the radius that it will spread to. And so it means that basically all the city trees are in danger. We have done an inventory of them, and we have Shade Tree is responsible for about 92 ash trees, and about a third of those are either completely dead or well on their way.
Oh, no.
And that's one of the signs. Pardon me?
A third
of our trees are affected already, yes. I talked with Dave Warden, and he said he first saw it last fall in trees out at Diamond. And so there was a tree on South Drake Street, and it was a sizable ash, and it was fine last year in the spring. It had 5% leaf cover. The rest was gone. And so it happens very quickly.
Yeah.
And these ash trees have a high composition of water, which is what makes, and the foresters refer to them as brittle. So once they are infested with the borer and die, they die very quickly. And I was given the time frame of get an dead ash tree down in a year, because the roots also deteriorate. So it means that they are very liable to fall, and that's why we're making this push. And we've taken down 6 already that are in public spaces that are where there's a lot of foot traffic around the schools, around Pitt. We've taken 6 down already.
Wow.
There are 4 in Shady Park, and they will go soon. And then we are working on the streets as well, and some of those will start to come down very soon.
And this is no inexpensive prospect either.
No.
Well,
It isn't. It all just depends on the size of the tree, where it grows, if there are wires in it, and it is quite a task. And then, of course, you have the stump to get removed, and it is quite a process.
Is there a way of stopping this, or is it?
Not at
It's
this
There's
point.
nothing you can do.
It's done.
You know, I'm sure that Penn State is down in their labs and Ohio State working on this right now. There is some way to inject the trees, but it's very expensive, and for most people, it's not practical. And in the literature you read, it'll say if you have, you know, in your front yard a most gorgeous ash tree and it's the centerpiece of your landscaping, you would have to treat it every year to year and a half with this injection to keep it alive. And it is probably an indefinite process. You know, we don't know how long the emerald ash borer is going to last. I asked that to the Penn State Extension Office, and they said, we're not sure. But we're guessing that, you know, at least since we have a third of our trees right now that are infected, diseased, and we need to take down, that we assume that another third or thereabouts will probably be needed to take down next year. And you know, I'm thinking in 5 years we'll probably not have any ash trees here in Titusville. Yeah.
Let's just go back for a minute to I've only been in Titusville for 4 years, and the mission of the Titusville Shade Tree Commission was to do pruning. Anything out of our reach, we would go to the Works Department and ask them, hey, can you help us to take this down? And on bigger trees, then we would go out and get private contractors to either help with the pruning of the trees, if it's still a viable tree, or to take the tree down. And the city, and we've been very grateful to the city, but the budget with the city is $10,000. And if we try to talk the city into, when, like during the summer, when you get a horrific rainstorm with winds and whatnot, trees come down, and we try to get the Works Department to clean up those type of things, because $10,000 doesn't go very far. By the time you're spending, you can spend upwards on a big tree. You can spend upwards of $2,000, $2,200
Wow.
for a private contractor to commit in. And they have to be very, you know, the bigger the tree, the more safety goes into it. You have to start at the top and come down.
You know, and I think in the past we've been labeled a Tree City USA.
We are a tree city.
Yeah, so
Puts a little pressure on.
it doesn't it, when you're taking the trees down.
Right.
But the
right.
federal government, those back in the 50s, I had some information that I found. They were getting a tremendous amount of money from the federal government, and that sort of, you know, now we get a little certificate saying you're a tree city, and a baseball cap that says Tree City USA.
And we do apply for that every year, and we have to meet certain stipulations.
Right.
And so, and that's a very good thing. It means that we do care for our trees, and we are, you know, aware of what's going on, and we are planting. You know, so.
Well, it all has to go, some of it, to appearances and visibility for the city, too. I mean, a city without trees or greenery would be an awfully boring
Right.
place to live.
Right.
And you can, you know, if you go on the internet and you ask for benefited trees, obviously they clean the air, they add to the aesthetics
Right.
of an area, but they also help with pollution. The pollutants get stuck in the leaves, and then when it rains, it washes them into the soil. And so the trees are that conduit for that. There are lots of interesting studies that show that when there are trees around businesses, more people walk into those businesses. And they obviously cool our houses, and there are lots and lots of good reasons to plant trees, and so we do continue to plant a variety of trees.
Is this an American tree? I mean, that's sort of a silly question to ask, but I mean,
An
there are
ash?
trees that are
Oh.
indigenous to North America and what have you. Is this one of those trees? Do you know?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know that. I'd have to. We use Wilcox Nursery for trees, and we'd have to ask them. We have a list of. One of the things that the two of us did in the last 4 years was we refined our list. When we take a tree down, we'll replant a new tree. and the homeowner can determine what. It used to be the homeowner could say, well, I want this tree. And then we find people saying, well, I want this upper Ukraine maple tree. And
I still haven't received it. I'm still waiting for it. So.
Okay.
Whenever you get around to it.
Yeah.
You will wait.
You'll wait a long time. But now we have it down to maybe a dozen or 15 trees. And that's Butch Wilcox out at Wilcox Nursery. We went out with our list, and he says, "Oh, you can't do this." He said, "This, there's a disease coming through. And you can't do this. This isn't a climate for that tree." So now we've used them to purify our list of what goes in. Mm-hmm. And some people are disturbed by that, but we tell them, if we put it in, we're going to be taking it out in 2 or 3 years. Mm-hmm.
This is the Morning Drill on Stream Television and the Allegheny News Talk Sports Network. You mentioned the costs involved in this, and what the city's budget is. Is there a way for community members to maybe help? Because it sounds like it's a pretty serious thing.
Yeah, what we're doing is we have different fronts. I said in a prepared statement, we've applied for and received a $2,500 grant from a local foundation to take care of Shady Park, and even that might be a couple $100 shy. But we'll take care of that hopefully through other drives. We're going to be contacting various foundations that we know of in the Titusville area as a request for funds. There are also local organizations that, by the type of monies they receive, they have to remit a certain amount of that money back to the community. And we've never gone after anything like this. And then we haven't started it yet because we wanted to set up a pass-through at the Titusville Redevelopment Authority, a pass-through to a fund for the Titusville Shade Tree Commission, and we're going to call it the Titusville Shade Tree Commission Special Fund. We haven't put a name on it yet. But if we do that, these, and I use the term individuals of wealth, who we've identified, and we're building up a directory of it, can get a tax deduction for federal funds or for their income tax.
So if people want to donate to this fund, they can make checks payable to the Greater Titusville Development Foundation, and they will receive a tax-deductible receipt for that, and that will be a big help to us because we are anticipating a very different year, and we're already starting to remove some trees. So as people see these trees come down, they should realize that yes, it is an expensive effort, but it's absolutely necessary. It's not one that we have any choice in. We do not want dangerous trees on the street, and so we're hoping that people will see this as a good place to donate some money, and any size donation is very very welcome, because some of our trees are small and not so expensive, while others are very
large,
expensive.
yeah.
So this is one way people can help.
Do you know if, and obviously you're taking them down for safety issues,
Yes.
Taking them down, does that also slow this up, or it doesn't really matter?
In order to no, I'm afraid the borer is with us, till it comes to an end. And I did ask that question: what happens when there are no more ash trees? Because ash are its primary host, and what happens after that, we're really not sure
Wow.
of. The trees are ground up, and that is one way to make sure that you get rid of the bugs, and so they are chipped up. Although the arborist in Meadville suggested that if you have a nice piece of ash log and you want to make it into a piece of furniture, it's fine to do that. But I don't think they want. There is a quarantine on firewood, and firewood should not be taken from one area to another. That is one way it was spread. And so Ohio has a quarantine, Pennsylvania has a quarantine. Burn your own firewood, don't take it anyplace. That's what they're saying.
Will we still be able to use the city lot to dump these trees? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
It sounds like you're getting a lot of support.
The city has been very helpful. In our regular Wednesday trimming, they let us borrow a truck, which is very, very helpful. And of course, they do budget for us every year, and most of the time we can squeak through with that, and with some help from other foundations in the area who have annually helped us out. We wouldn't make it on our 10,000 alone, because we get a windstorm and it takes down a tree. It can take a quarter of our budget right there, and that's one tree.
Yeah, and I think that's probably why this needs to be stressed.
Yes.
You have this budget that you use yearly.
Yes.
And now you've added this on top of it.
That's right. And one of our problems, too, is that a lot of our trees were planted about the same time, which was probably the early 1900s. And now they're all aging at approximately the same time. So you see some big trees dropping sizable branches, and that is a real danger. And so we do try to get those down. And then turn around and replant in that same area. So,
now, indeed, you brought your case before City Council earlier
did.
this year too, and as you mentioned, they were very supportive of what you were doing. But you seemed to get a fairly sympathetic hearing from those that were there as well.
yes, and we appreciate that. We want people to know that we're aware of the problem. We can't deal with it all at one time. And so we do try to prioritize which is the most dangerous, which needs to come down. And that's why we went to the schools first, because of the foot traffic that's around those.
So if somebody has a question, maybe they have an ash tree, but they're not sure, can they call somebody, or are there certain things that they could look for?
There are signs, yes, and Dick mentioned the growth at the bottom. When the larvae come out of the tree, they leave a D-shaped opening in the bark.
Oh, I thought the kids were leaving initials on the.
No,
that's not it.
they are
Okay.
not. They are not. And so, and the worst case is when there are no leaves on the tree that had leaves last year. That's a dead giveaway. But they can call. They can call Dick McAllister, and or they can call me. My phone number is 827-9103. We may not get back to you right away, because typically we go out as a team and say, what do you see here on this tree that I don't see? So we try to do it together. So we don't necessarily get out immediately, but we do get out.
The other source is they can call Larry Manrose, the city manager at City Hall, and his secretary normally gets the calls and then sends the comment about why they're calling, the name, the street number, and if a phone number, if they can get it off of the individual. And then we'll accumulate this over a week or so, and then go out, not on a Wednesday, because we're out there from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. walking the streets trimming. We'll go out and look at it and either try to contact the individual and say yes or no, and here's why it's yes, or here's why it's no. So we do a lot. There's a lot of that goes on, and it peaks too, because as soon as they see us out there starting in May 1 with our equipment and our fluorescent green shirts on it, Titusville Shade Tree Commission, they say, "Oh, right, I have this tree. Maybe I ought to talk to them." But then it dies off come October, November, and through the winter.
Titusville isn't, as you mentioned, isn't the only community struggling with this. Have you been able to reach out to other communities to see, what they're doing or what action plan they're putting in place?
It's this, and I think I've adopted this too. It's sort of a two-edged sword. Some of the communities take down an amazing amount of trees, and we've been able to find out the amount of money that they're spending. What they don't give up is how they're funding it. Where are they getting the money? One community, remain nameless, they they were on their second request for proposal to have trees taken down for some. The second request was $35,000.
Ooh.
I mean, where do you get that money?
Well, we're closing a pool.
Well, that's another subject. I guess.
Yeah.
But we do appreciate people understanding, because it's not a fast process to get 32 trees taken down, and so as we work our way through, and we hope people will understand that this is not what we, as tree huggers, love to do, is to take down trees. We really, this is painful, really.
And this really is a beautiful community with the trees, and
It is.
You hate to see any tree get cut down. But it sounds like as you take a tree down, maybe, I mean, what happens to the soil? Is it still good? Can you still plant something there once the tree's removed?
Yes.
Part of taking the tree down is that the private contractor will also drill out the stump, and there's different ways of doing that. But once that stump is gone to a certain depth, then we can replant.
Okay.
Or we can replant in a nearby area. So we are eager to replant, and if people perhaps have had a tree taken down previously and they want a tree now, there is a form at City Hall, and the form is also available online. They can fill it out, send it in, and we will process that and plant. We typically do not plant till later in the fall, when the dry season is over, because these new trees do take a lot of water, about 5 gallons, maybe 2 to 3 times a week. So if
Really?
you see somebody with a 5-gallon bucket downtown, they're out there watering trees, and it is a task. But if we plant later in the fall, the snow helps with that and gets that tree started. And so last year we had a very open fall. We were planting in the first week of December because the ground was not frozen.
Right.
And so if you want a tree, we are more than happy to help you with that.
Alrighty. Dick McAllister, Lynn Cressman, thank you so much for joining us this morning. And again, checks should be made payable to Greater Titusville Development Foundation, or GTDF. Note in the memo for benefit of the Titusville Shade Tree Commission. And you can call 827-4756 if you need more information. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you,
And please come back and update us on what's going on.
Okay.
I
we'll do
will
that.
say that we're going to keep the donors and the public informed through the stream, through public newsprint, meetings with City Council, and assistance by the Titusville Redevelopment Authority. So we're just not going to go out and get the money and spend it. We're going to tell people why we did this, how successful our efforts are, and then they'll see it in ash trees being replaced.
Alrighty. Thank you guys very much.
Thanks, Luke.
It's just a yellow lemon tree, and I wonder